So my name is Michael O'Neill. I work for Fuji. Fuji's been in business for a good long time. And I'll take 2 seconds to explain what we do, and we'll move past that. We'll get into the good technical discussion as fast as possible. Fuji's worldwide. We have 3 major offices. We're a US-based company headquartered in Dallas, Texas. That's where I am right now. And it is miserably hot here and threatening to rain as we speak. We also have operations down in Costa Rica. We use Costa Rica as a nearshore facility to provide a security operations center, to provide white glove service for customers, because Costa Rica, A, has some brilliant technically advanced people. Their English is exceptionally good. And most importantly, they're on the same time zone as the US. So they align to the central time zone. So they're up and around and working the same time zone as most of our US customers. We also have a huge operation out in India with plenty of people. We're about 600 people strong. And here's what we do. What we don't do is we don't try to do everything. Matter of fact, if you ask us, you say, hey, do you do accounting systems or do you do this? We're going to say no. And that's what I love about Fuji, because a lot of partners will like, oh yeah, sure. Then they'll run out and try to hire someone to go do that business. That's not Fuji. These are the 4 areas that we do. As I mentioned, this kind of quality and product engineering, low code, no code, test, penetration testing, security testing, all of that good stuff. Cloud advisory services, helping customers migrate to cloud, helping customers design and architect, and what we're going to be talking about today, govern and manage the cloud. We have a whole group on security. As I said, we're setting up a security operations center in Costa Rica. We've got that staffed with some incredible people. And then we do a whole lot of data engineering, data visualization, analytic work. That's kind of my specialty and my background. A lot of our sessions for these webinars relate to Power BI, analytics, some deep stuff. So I encourage you, if you like today's event, please come back. We've got plenty more covering these 4 key areas. And what I try to do is I try to take each one and divide it up into multiple segments. So I've got like 5 analytic webinars that I do, all related to analytics. Each one will have multiple sessions, so you're not bored of always seeing the same thing. What are we talking about today? So that was it for the sales. Now it's all technical. Let's dive in. And I should probably explain how I know CoreStack. Joel, who's finishing up a customer call, he's coming on shortly. He's the partner manager for CoreStack, and I have known Joel for a really long time. Joel and I used to work together when I left Microsoft. I was at Microsoft for almost 20 years. And when I left, I went to a company called Azaleos, and it was founded by a bunch of ex-Microsoft employees. And Joel was there, and him and I both worked at Azaleos, little teeny cloud company, growing like crazy. We were doing absolutely phenomenal work. It was a really cool place to be. Unfortunately, when you grow like crazy, you get bought up by the big fish. And Avanade purchased Azaleos, so we both became Avanade employees. I decided they already had a partner manager. I was doing partner manager, so I went on and did some other stuff. But that's how Joel and I originally met. When I went out and started working with customers to work on cloud, 2 things happened. Number 1, customers kept running into these multi-cloud situations. And so they're trying to also support AWS while also supporting Azure. And you're going to find out they're very different, very complex environments, and you got to apply different governance rules. You got to do different stuff. And so it was a challenge. And from that, I found CoreStack. And CoreStack, as you will find out today, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about, they have developed a really cool solution that allows you to bring all the multi-cloud together under what we call one pane of glass, one interface to kind of govern it all. So you're not having to jump out of Azure and jump over to AWS and then move over to GCP or move over to Oracle Cloud or whatever and try to pull all this stuff together manually. CoreStack's going to do that for you. And in particular around FinOps and CloudOps and security ops, they do an incredible job. So I needed it pretty badly for my customers. And Uday, did I even say that correctly? Is that a good way of describing what CoreStack does?
Absolutely, absolutely. Actually, there's more, but that's a pretty good few lines.
From a high level, yeah. And we're going to get into all of that, as I said. The second way I know Core Stack is I was at Microsoft, as I said, for a long time, and I did a lot of their presentations. And Microsoft, this is going to sound weird, but Microsoft was worried customers were spending too much on Azure consumption. I know that sounds opposite of what you'd think. You'd think they'd be overjoyed. But what happened is, especially during COVID, customers rushed to support work from home. We all did. And plans that were 2 to 5 years in the making suddenly became 2 months in deployment as everyone rushed to get these things out and help keep their organizations afloat. And that was really critical that happened. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. So what occurred when that happened is they got it up and running, they're superheroes, et cetera, but they didn't necessarily put all the governance, controls, cost accounting, other stuff on top because they were rushing so bad. So what Microsoft started to notice is customers were spending 3 times their projected cloud spend they were spending on their Azure services. Whoops. And that's not good. It's not good for Microsoft because long-term customers are gonna be like, there's no way I can't afford cloud. Cloud was supposed to be cheaper and I'm actually spending a whole lot more money. And Microsoft was smart enough to know that yes, they were making a ton of money, but the customers weren't happy because of this need to rush out there. Suddenly they were overspending quite a bit and they were starting to pull back on this whole cloud thing. So Microsoft developed a program called the Cloud Adoption Framework, what we call the CAF, and they asked the Core Stack to run this program for them. So Core Stack is such a high-end Microsoft partner, and they're also a partner with AWS and Google and all this, but they asked Core Stack to really go deliver these events. And Core Stack knew my Microsoft background, and Microsoft knew my Microsoft background. Anyway, long story short, I went and helped as a subcontractor to Core Stack deliver these enterprise CAF events. And I want to talk about those just a little bit so you understand them. And then I want to show you, or have Uday show you, how the program at Core Stack, the solution that they have, will help you manage and maintain all this stuff. So let's just kind of jump ahead on that and realize. But I about a year, I guess it's almost been a year and a half now, I delivered 57 of these CAF events, CAF workshops. They're 2-day workshops where we sit down with customers and we say, okay, let's think about what are you trying to do when you move to cloud. Let's identify it, let's document it. That's really important. Make sure we're all on the same page. And then we bring in a cloud architect and we actually build them a well-governed, well-managed framework that they can move all of their workloads to. And instantly by doing that, they started to see their costs like drop, as I mentioned, by like 3x. How does your cost get up to that high? How are you spending 3 times what you meant to? People start spinning up virtual resources and they way over commit to them. They put too much RAM and too many CPUs. You let a technical nerd like me go crazy in the Azure workspace and I'm going to put 128 gigs of RAM on my VM. I don't need that much, but I'm a nerd and I like it, and I'm going to put too many processors, and so we're going to oversize significantly what's there. That's one way you drive those costs up. Number 2, no one looks at what is the consumption of that. Do we need that to be running 24/7? Because if it's running in Azure, it's billing. Now you can turn them off, you can shut them down, but if someone doesn't think about it and they fire up one of these and then they forget to turn it off and it runs for months and months and months, even though no one's using it, it's still billing against the Azure consumption rate. So that's another way to do it. Other things, I may leave the company or one of your engineers, fires up 5 different processes and then decides to retire or go work elsewhere or whatever, and no one knows that these systems are just sitting there consuming resources. So these are kind of the things that we have to address when we talk about governance. And keeping ahead of that, that's where this 3x higher cost is coming from. And that's a legitimate number. And I don't know, Uday, if you have any customer examples or whatnot where you've seen this particular thing. Customers come in, when we do a workshop And we do these today. We offer CAF workshops for any of our customers that are interested in going through the process. I highly recommend it. And we typically charge about $5,000 for a 2-day workshop, which is really cheap. It's a cloud architect, it's a design, you get the document, etc. I'm not trying to sell you here, I'm just explaining. The reason it's cheap is because at 3x the payback, you will get a return on investment within months, and then everything beyond that is just pure gravy. So in other words, we're going to save you 10 times that amount in a short period of time. So it really does pay for itself at all. But Uday, do you have any customer examples you can think of, or scenarios where customers didn't realize how much they were overspending?
Oh, absolutely, Mike. Absolutely. I mean, there have been customers who within the first 2 months have realized sort of 70% on some of their non-prod environments, right?
Wow.
So exact reason that you mentioned, right? See, it's not for lack of knowledge or intent, it's for lack of bandwidth and time, right? So the continuous optimization is not something that is on top of anybody's agenda. So while they know it has to be done, it rarely gets done. And the main problem, as you mentioned, right, on cloud, you use it or not, you pay for it. And there is a lot of customers that within the first 2 months, I mean within the first 2 weeks, they see how good or how bad the drift is from what they initially thought they'll be spending. Yeah.
I know a lot of you are thinking we pre-canned this and he knows what questions I'm asking. No, we have not talked at all. He has no idea I'm about to throw the ball at him and ask a question. So I appreciate you answering that. This really is spontaneous. And again, I encourage you, please use your chat window or your question window. If you want to ask a question or tee it up, you can turn on your microphone. This is your time to do this. This problem, by the way, gets compounded even further. I told you I did 57 of these CAF events for CoreStack last year, 2002, 2003. And the surprise to me, one of the first questions we asked is, are you multi-cloud? Do you use more than one cloud? And the answer, without question, 72% of everyone who went through a Microsoft Cloud event also either had AWS or GCP. I would say 97% of them were AWS. It's very, very popular to have AWS and Azure together. So imagine we're wasting money on Azure. Now we're also wasting money on AWS for the exact same reasons. However, the process you go to secure and lock down and put policies and compliance and cost stuff completely different in the AWS world as it is in the Azure world. So I actually spent about 6 months building a CAF similar to what Microsoft had. At least the concept is similar, but I rebuilt it now for AWS. And we're just now starting a whole campaign where we're going out and helping AWS customers get a hold of their spend, get a hold of their cost and management and all that good stuff. So it's similar, but very different. Let me show you what I mean when I say similar, but different. I'm going to give you these slides, so you're going to have these links. These are the various governance sections for Microsoft, for AWS, for Google, for Oracle, etc. So you can click on these links, it'll take you right to them. If I click here, I think I've already got a window open, and it's in the wrong screen. Let me pull this over. So this is Microsoft's governance tool. This is their CAF, Cloud Adoption Framework, okay? And you can go out there, this is completely free. You don't need Fuji to do this. You don't need CoreStack to do this. You can do it yourself. But what you're gonna see is, it really is overwhelming. If I just scroll down here, for example, they've done a great job of kind of organizing this. Here's how to get started. Here's some things to avoid, problems, mistakes companies make. And then here's about strategies and planning and innovation and migration and on and on. All of these things, if I click any one of these, there are pages upon pages upon pages, and most of the pages like this link to a whole set of pages upon pages upon pages. When I first had to learn this, when Microsoft asked me to deliver these and CoreStack asked me to deliver these, it was like 6 months worth of reading just to get through all of this. That's how much data is out there. And most companies come back and they simply say, I don't have the time to read it all. I just can't do it. What they use companies like Fuji and CoreStack to do is say, you've read it all, give me the highlights. Tell me where I need to spend my time. Tell me where I should, you know, if I only had X number of hours, what's the stuff I really should concentrate on? And that's what these CAF workshops have really become. We kind of cut through all of the noise and get right into the stuff that really matters most to companies. And we help you kind of build these plans. As I said, we design a formal document about getting to cloud. We show you how to put the governance. We understand your policies, your compliance issues, your cost issues. It's all under non-disclosure, so nothing gets, you know, repeated outside the workshops. And then we custom build a landing zone for you that lets you do this. It does, by the way, because I'm sure someone might ask, well, what happens if I've already deployed? I've already got this stuff out there and I've already got these problems. It's not like I'm starting over from scratch. We can actually, the system is designed to deploy a landing zone parallel to anything you have in production. And they're separated from each other. So there's nothing that we do that can touch anything that's already running in your environment, and vice versa. So we keep it kind of firewalled. And what the workshop does, as I mentioned, it's 2 days. We set this thing up, we put in your governance rules, your cost accounting, all that. Security is a huge issue. People have huge security holes, don't even realize it. We're gonna put all that in place. And once you feel really comfortable that it's all protected, then you can shift and migrate over, literally right click, like in Azure, I right click on a workload and I say, move it into my landing zone, and it'll instantly inherit all the rules and the policies and the cost accounting and stuff. If you want to see that live, by the way, come back. I do these webinars all the time where I show this process and I'll show you what it looks like and how it works. But if you don't want to pay us, or you don't want to be a part of, you know, what we're talking about here, you are free to go out and just do all this yourself. It's just a whole lot of work. The other thing I want to show you, and I think this relates to the demo, and we'll get to the demo here in another 5-10 minutes or so. But Microsoft and AWS and Google and Oracle and everyone create these tools and templates that can help you do this yourself. But the same problem exists. If I click on tools and templates, I counted these up. There's 47 different tools that Microsoft has that'll help you migrate, it'll help you do the management, the cost controls, the security, etc. And again, you're right back in the same boat where it's like, it'll take me a year to go through all these tools, figure out which ones I need, which ones I should do. So that's why oftentimes customers will turn to a partner to do this. I wouldn't say it's the negative, but the one drawback to doing these CAF events, whether it's for Microsoft or AWS or Google or Oracle, is, okay, great, I get the landing zone up. I start moving my workloads over. I start getting the cost accounting in place. But how do I keep on top of it? How do I know that I'm not spinning up new oversized VMs? How do I know that someone hadn't left the company and now I have all these orphaned resources sitting out there? How do I know that I just didn't open up a massive security hole by, you know, messing with my virtual networking or doing whatever? And that's really what today's session is about. And in particular, CoreStack has this really cool tool that helps kind of monitor this over the top. Now, Fuji is a CoreStack partner, which just simply means we all work together and help customers out when they need this. We don't get paid or commissioned, or I'm not aware of anything in process. We do this because it makes sense for our customer. And because CoreStack's so cool, they knew I was doing this, and they knew I could use help with a demo because I don't have a demo environment set up. So they were like, we'll be glad to jump in and help you. And I greatly appreciate their help in putting this together. Rather than, again, talk you to death, what I'd love to do is have Uday come back, and we're going to change over, let him present, and he's going to show you how it does some of this. And I kind of put this in the slide deck. We jump down here. So this is CoreStack and kind of what they do, FinOps, SecOps, etc. By the way, I'm really proud of this. It's totally aside, but I did all this artwork in Midjourney. These are all AI-generated images. And so I take a bow of myself because I thought it was kind of cool. Anyway, as I mentioned, the problem, you know, you've got hundreds of checklist items you have to go to. You're monitoring 500 resources or more. trying to capture, record, validate all the different stuff to figure out if you're getting the most out of this is a very, very daunting and time-consuming task. And so what we're going to talk about today is the core stack solution comes in. It's automating your executables. It's identifying issues and violations. It's helping you set up remediation for a lot of this stuff. And most importantly, it's bringing very complex environments together under a single pane of glass, so it makes it 1,000 times easier to use. So rather than talk you to death, what I'd love to do is have Uday take over. He's just going to go through this and show you some of this. I asked him, could you show some of the interface, show a little maybe automated testing, or talk about how you would run assessments for, best practices. Reporting is something everyone wants to know, evidence tracking. But he can take this in any direction that you want. Just feel free, again, to ask questions, raise your hand, prompt into the Q&A. I'll be watching that, and I'll be sure to interject if indeed someone has a question. But I'm going to stop sharing, and we'll ask him to take over. And if you can grab the screen and run with it, you are up and show us some cool core stack stuff.
Sure, thanks, Mike, for that. Okay, can one of you confirm that you're able to see my screen?
See your screen.
Okay. Okay, so as Mike mentioned, right? So this is a single governance platform that can help you govern your resources, cloud resources, across multiple customers, entities, and across all hyperscalers that you do have in your footprint, cloud footprint, right? So again, at CoreStack, we believe any resource that is there has to be governed across the three panes of CloudOps, FinOps, and SecOps, right? Because all resources cost money continuously. There's a meter running whether you use it or not. So that is an area that you need to be able to continuously monitor and optimize. Right? See, when it comes to FinOps, right, like the more glamorous or fancy or more interesting way of saving cost is through redesigning your say monolithic application, decomposing it into microservices and so on and so forth, right? That is more like a home run in baseball, right? You don't get that every time, right? You can do that and it's fantastic, but the more boring and more real day-to-day basis, like a base hit, right, is optimized based on usage, right? You're typically over provisioned because you want to be sure about resilience and so on and so forth. But in reality, you'll be surprised at the amount of leakage or wastage in terms of resources that is there. So I'll walk you through those as I move through the platform. So we use the concept of tenancy in case you're a huge enterprise.
On a Mac, right? So this is all web-based. It's not a installed application that I have to keep maintained and all that. I just interface it through any browser.
Right. So just logging in. Okay, there you go. Right. So this is pretty much your landing page view. There's a simple onboarding process, so you can onboard your accounts either in a read-only mode or a read plus write mode. What's the difference? The difference being if you do on a read plus write mode, which we call as assessment plus governance mode, you'll be able to take actions from the platform itself. You don't have to jump between consoles to take any remedial actions or implement any optimizations. You can do it from this one single console across AWS, Azure, GCP, and OCI. Okay. On the other hand, if you do want to have control and say, okay, I want to see the insights, I want to see what I can do, but I will go ahead and do it on the console, AWS or Azure or GCP console, then you can onboard in a read-only mode. Okay. So what we do here, anywhere between 12 to 24 hours it takes for the first time to onboard your accounts. And first is inventory discovery. So as part of inventory discovery, we discover all the current resources that you do have on your cloud footprint. And then
Uday, one point I forgot to mention, I apologize, and I just realized this. If you're having trouble seeing the screen because it's small, there's a bar at the top that you can grab and pull up. You don't necessarily need to see our webcams running. You can make it much, much bigger. It makes it easier to see what he's doing. I apologize for interrupting, but I'm sure people were like, wait a minute, it's too small to see. So
sure. So what you do see here is an ability for you to just with a click of button switch between your clouds, inventory. Again, we do have a RBAC module in CoreStack that allows you to control who has which part of your team members have access to what screens or capabilities on core stack, right? So that's there. We integrate with all major single sign-on mechanisms like Azure Active Directory or one login Okta. Say what you will. We do integrate with all of them. Right? So once you are here, right? So we also enable day to actions. So your teams can actually, between AWS to Azure to GCP, they can just switch with the click of a button, and they can start doing some of these actions that they need to do on a day-to-day basis, right? Any actions taken or captured on the audit log itself, so you can trace back. So this way, you are able to, inventory discovery and inventory visibility is enabled for you in a seamless manner. And after the first time, we enable near real-time discovery. So anytime a resource is created or deleted, CoreStack can, within a matter of minutes, it can discover that and keep this current at all times, right? Over and above that, so inventory classification, this becomes critical typically where tagging comes into the picture, right? Tagging is very critical for good cost allocations as well as automations that you want to do, right? So for example, take an example of a performance test environment, right? As soon as your release is over, pretty much you can shut it down, right? And before the next release, let's say you have a three-month release cycle, you don't really need a performance test environment through the first 2 months, right? In the last 1 month, you need it. So if you're tagged all your resources right, through just one click of a button, you can shut down all the resources based on a tag, right? So that is one thing. The other thing is how, from cost allocations perspective, see, all hyperscalers provide you the ability to enforce good tagging. Nobody does that because it increases the cycle time for provisioning. So what you end up with is dev teams are happy because they have their resources. They can start deploying their applications and continue building their features. But the finance teams start having difficulties allocating the cost to the right teams, right, or cost centers or departments. So that is where tagging comes in handy. Otherwise, they have to count on the other ones, on the VLOOKUPs on the Excels and so on and so forth. So what we do have here is the ability for you to define, right, codify your tagging standards that you like. So you work with your FinOps teams. You codify what are is something that they need. So an example here is AWS, across AWS and Azure accounts, 2 accounts. I have decided these are the 6 tags that need to be there, and for each tag, what is considered a valid value, right? So once you have codified that, you click generate posture, you'll be able to see at any given point in time what is your tagging hygiene when compared to the actual standard that you want to have, right? Most times, most customers that we have onboarded, I mean, maybe 90% of the customers roughly have as the first baseline around 30 to 35% as their tagging hygiene, right? Within a matter of months, maybe a month and a half, with concentrated effort using CoreStack, they have been able to bring it all the way up to 75 to 80%. What that means is, from then on, instead of having your finance teams to spend 2 days at the end of the month to make sure all the cost data is right, the 2 days comes down to probably 4 hours, right? So that's something that we have seen for some of our customers. Again, right? So it depends on. So now here, the second thing is the responsibility for that tagging. Right? FinOps cannot be done by just the infrastructure team, right? It has to be the whole organization across teams. It has to be the procurement team, the infrastructure maintenance team, and the development teams. How do you ensure that the responsibility also is federated across, right? So that's where you can use CoreStack rather than giving everybody access on 2 different clouds and asking them to go check and do their tagging. At CoreStack, you can give them access just so they can tag their resources, remove their access. So what happens then is now you're having more people work collaboratively to ensure your tagging is what it should be. So at the end of the month, there's not going to be any conflicts or recasting of data multiple times. Right?
I was going to inject in that too, because this is a huge issue. When we do CAP events, tagging is the most important thing that nobody does. Exactly what you guys says, right? It just adds time in. People get lazy. They use different definitions. But inside these cloud environments, tagging is the way in which you can take the consumption of a resource and reapply it back to the department that it came from. One of the popular things now is what we call showbacks. IT directors want to tell the marketing team, okay, here's a list of everything I've done for you. Here's all the resources that I'm currently managing that apply to marketing. Well, the way that gets done is through tagging. And so what he just showed is amazing, because you can set up the structure ahead of time. You can make it much faster. you can actually put a policies to auto tag things if necessary in case people get lazy doing it. And what it does is it snaps all your cost accounting back into individual groups. So I know, yes, this came from the marketing department and this came from IT spend, and this particular project we're doing for this customer is budgeting correctly all the expenses inside of these multi-cloud environments. It's amazing what he just showed, and I want to make sure everyone understood that.
Yeah, and from a FinOps Foundation's perspective, right, one of the basic foundational best practices is tagging. Right? Without good tagging, pretty much your FinOps, is never going to get off the ground. You can still do a lot of things outside, but that is, spending a lot of effort for a lot less returns, right? So tagging is the way to go. If you can label your resources right, that's like giving your teams, right, different levels of, slice and dice that they can actually start doing, right? Better insights, better governance all around. So here, again, right, this enables you, the feature that I'm showing you enables you to move the responsibility, right, away from just one team to the specific teams that actually are accruing that cost, that are actually going to be held accountable to that cost, right? And this is also the first step towards the holy grail of unit metrics, right? So for that, tagging has to be good, cost allocations have to be right, and here you're also ensuring that multiple teams can collaborate, work in a collaborative manner, which means the burden also is reduced, right? There's no one team that is having to carry that whole burden, and when it is split, it gets done more properly, right? So you can just go do this, so your teams can actually be given access so they can go and own their resources and the tagging of their resources.
So that was a report that actually pulled resources that weren't tagged correctly or didn't have a tag on them. Is that what you were showing? Yeah.
What I'm showing is the ones that don't, that are probably having tags but are not in compliance with the standard that you'd like to have, right? So for example, PRD instead of PROD, right?
Yeah.
So that will reflect as a separate, department or something like that. So you can sort of.
That's a huge point too, because I know what CoreStack does, having done these events with them. The governance that comes from Azure and AWS, they have published out best practices that they ask customers to follow. CoreStack didn't make these up. Fuji didn't make these up. We actually have read through and we understand what they're recommending based on their best practices, and we've built, CoreStack has a tool here that now helps you manage and apply that across. So I just want to make sure when we talk tagging, you understand this is following best practices of AWS. This is following best practices of Azure, and it's kind of a forcing function that makes sure it gets done correctly.
Absolutely, right? And so this is pretty much the first step of your FinOps journey, right? Your ability to tag the cost to the right people that that are actually using the resources. Once you have done that, what is the next step? Now, I am before CoreStack, I used to work delivering cloud projects, in TCS for a long time, and I have never known. I mean, I'm not proud of this or whatever, but I have never known what is the cost of infra for my projects. Never once I had known that, right? And I was able to do my delivery, etc., etc. What that means is I never took responsibility for that cost because I never knew what the cost was, right? So the second most important foundational aspect of FinOps on cloud is for anybody that you want to be held accountable for cost of the infrastructure or optimization efforts, you need to allow them or make it available, make the information available for them as and when they need it. They should not have to wait for somebody to send a report out by an email or have to go put in a request for anything. At any given point in time, if they want to see their cost, they should be able to see their cost. Now, can you do that by giving them access to Cloud Console? Probably. But nobody wants to do that because it's too much effort to maintain all sorts of accesses and across multiple clouds. What you can do is on CoreStack, one single pane, right? You're onboarded, you go ahead and just give them access to the FinOps module, right? So what they can see is this, right? There are three different dimensions across which we make the cost available. Depending on stakeholders, we can create or IT teams can create dashboards like this. So these are widget-based dashboards. So you can talk to the particular persona. If it's a CFO who cares about a cloud cost trend across all the three hyperscalers for months, that's something that you can keep. if it's a different FinOps practitioner that wants to see okay, which product category is actually my most expensive, and see if I can go for savings plans and things like that. So you can change these, you can configure this whole dashboard as a widget based dashboard, and make it available for each separate persona to see just what they want to see, right? Directionally at a high level. That is one level. The next is this posture type of thing, where you make it available for your department heads or cost center owners for them to be able to dig down, right? A couple of levels, right? Across different periods. If you want to see this cost, you can see that again, right? Multi-cloud all in a single pane. You go down, drill down, right? So by product category, or you want to see what is your top 5 product category, right? So that's something that you can do. If you do have good tagging, this is even better, right? So once you're tagged, you want to understand specifically, right? I have my resources across 3 different accounts, and I've tagged them all, right? So what you want to see is, for a particular application, what am I spending on QA for the last 3 months? So you use your tags, right? You select a combination of tags to arrive at that cost. So this is very useful information for you to understand, okay, where there is a possibility of saving cost, where you're actually going, you might be thinking that you are doing fine, but this will clearly tell you if you're doing fine or not. Right? So that is another one dimension that can be made available for everybody that you want to make available this information for. The last one is the reports, where this is more about how a project team and an infra team can work together, seeing the same set of data points, right, at any given point of time. So it reduces the amount of time to get to a decision, right, because everybody is seeing the same set of data points, right, rather than having to wait for something, or getting half-baked information. So this type of information is made available. Multiple CAN reports. Each report has multiple dimensions again. So while we do have, say, 10 or 15 reports, into 6 makes it around 90 types of views that you can actually have, right? So across this, what is your product category? You can download. You can send them as out if you do need to. So this is the different types of visibility that we enable. Again, you don't need to give anybody access to the console. You just give them access to core stack. You have your resource on AWS, GCP, Azure, or OCA, everything in one single pane for them to see and to continue to keep track of their costs, right? So that is one. Now we have enabled good cost allocation. We have enabled visibility for your cost. What next? Now you say, okay, go ahead and optimize. Make sure that you're always running at an optimized state, right? So can you do that without a tool? Can you do that with what other tools you have today? Probably yes. Do you have the knowledge to actually figure out where you can save money? Again, yes. Do you have the time to do that, right? That's where the challenge comes, right? As I said, right, the more interesting or glamorous thing is the architectural way of changing a design of a particular thing to decompose application into microservices and so on and so forth. That is the big home run. But what you have is, on a day-to-day basis, you have opportunities that you can actually utilize to save cost, but that takes effort and time that you don't have, or don't want to spend. CoStack does those steps for you. It gives you all those recommendations. It says, go look for an opportunity here. There's an opportunity here. All you have to bring is the context of that particular workload, right? All the information that you do need is provided by CoStack. So I'll take an example, and again here we take everything, single pane again. Whatever you get from a compute optimizer or a trusted advisor or Google advisor, right? All of that you'll still see here, right? Over and above that, we have our own CoStack policies that generally target services that you don't typically get a recommendation from any of these hyperscalers, right? So those type of recommendations over and above what are hyperscaler recommendations, that's also shown here for you. I'll just take one to give you an idea of what type of information is available for you, right? It tells you what is the potential savings, what is, say, current SKU and the recommended SKU. So what has to change, and if you do go ahead and do this change, what is the potential for savings, right? And if you do want to see, okay, what is the underlying information on this, that's also something that you'll be able to see. So you get to see all the information about every recommendation across every hyperscaler in one simple user interface. All you have to do is bring the context of that particular workload. Maybe you get together with your dev team and say, let's sit together, go through this, and you can go ahead and act on it also from CoStack. You can click remediate right now, or you can have, say if you're integrating with a ServiceNow or a Jira tool, you can go ahead and use that to create a change request that can be approved with your normal approval workflow. As and when that is done, the action is taken, right? So another one thing with respect to this usage recommendation is schedule recommendations. See, manage and orphan. See, I am constantly surprised by the amount of savings that we actually show across these two, right? These two seem like a simple, straightforward, low-hanging fruit. I have no idea why, but we always seem to have a lot of options to save cost on these two, idle and orphan, right? They are simple, straightforward, but some of people are not getting to them. There's a lot of money that is getting wasted there. So coming to the schedule recommendation, that is key for non-prod resources. Prod resources, probably you don't want to do this so much, but for non-prod, major savings we have seen with some of our customers when they go with schedule recommendations. This basically tells you when the utilization is typically low, ideas where you can actually shut down and bring up your machines. See, on a Friday night you shut it down, on a Monday morning you bring it up. That is 2/7, right? 2/7 of a week, almost 26% cost savings, just like that. So, and you can do all that, you can schedule that all just by going here, and it will tell you what is the timelines and all that, right? So you go to actions, remediate, it will say from this time to this time you're bringing this down, right? For non-prod, there's a major area of savings that we have seen with a lot of our customers.
I would like to chime in there if I can, just with a customer story. When we were doing CAF, can't tell you the number of times I talked to an IT director in these CAF workshops, and they were like, "No, we don't have orphan resources, we don't have idle resources," and we're like, "Okay," and it's exactly what you say. I know when we run a report for this, it's going to come back, and it always surprises them every time. They're like, "No way," So it's, you only know what you know, or you don't know what you don't know, right? And these tools do a great job of pulling that data and at least giving you the visibility. And I've had a number of accounts that say, we've had bets as like, it's going to be under 10%, and it came back at like 60%. It was just out of this world. And they suddenly realized it's just wasted money. I love what you just showed too. If no one uses the server from 7 p.m. at night till 6 a.m. in the morning, just write a script and shut the thing down, and then in the morning fire it right back up. And there's no reason to be paying for that.
Write a script also, right? If you so it will show you where the opportunity is based on utilization, past utilization. You don't even have to write a script. You just have to click a couple of buttons, right? Yep. And the schedule is set there for you to implement that in the background.
So it'll remediate it right from inside the interface. That's incredible.
Yes. Okay, so that's our cost optimization recommendations. Again, as I said, we do pull everything that you can get on your hyperscaler. We show that, no issues. Over and above that, we have our own cost recommendations that will give you recommendations for some of the PaaS services, like a Cosmos DB and things like that, for which you don't really get so many recommendations from the hyperscaler itself. Right? That is one. Second is, what comes from the hyperscaler is a black box recommendation, right? You take it or leave it. What you can do on CoreStack is you can work with us. We have our own policies. You can tweak those policies and just have them for your subscription. So that way, right, because your workloads better, you might say, okay, where I might say 50% is good utilization, let's not touch that. You might say, no, 80% is good. Till it's 80%, I'll still consider that as underutilized. So that's a choice you can make. And CoreStack can help you actually tweak those configurations and keep them in your subscription so that you'll keep seeing those recommendations. You don't have to act on them, but at least you'll start seeing those recommendations automatically, right? And that's a big deal, because as you optimize, your opportunity for optimization starts reducing if you're just going to stick to what is given by a hyperscaler or even what is given by a CoreStack, right? That is where your own knowledge you want to actually codify and make it count, and that's something you can do with CoreStack.
So I just want to make sure too, people remember, use the Q&A section if you have any questions you'd like to ask. I'll be sure to monitor it and be able to get your answers as well. So
yes, please. So moving on, the last couple of things. So we talked about, and as you guys know, right, FinOps Foundation, the iterative cycle is inform, optimize, and operate, right? We talked about how allocations are done and information is provided. We just talked about optimization. And last, control, right? Better control. Better control is, first you have to define what's the budget, right? What's the baseline you have to stick to. So here we have the ability for you two things. One is you can define budgets across hyperscalers. You have a workload that, or you have a program or project that uses resources across GCP and AWS, go for it. Define one budget. And then you can also define budgets at a granular level, right? Rather than defining at an account level or something, you can go down, right? Tag level, resource group levels, whatever that you want. Across both hyperscalers, you can do that. Once you do that, there are two things that is enabled. One is we are integrated. We can integrate with your ITSM service now or a Jira type of a tool to create tickets instead of just sending a mail. Mail can be ignored. Tickets cannot be ignored because there's a workflow attached to that, right? So that's something that we can do. Second, let's say you are 200% over budget, right? Bad habits die easy, and you've been alerted through a mail, you've been alerted ticket, you've done nothing about it. If you do want, you can actually start shutting down resources, right? To sort of nudge people into taking actual actions. So those are things that you can actually do and configure on CoreStack itself, right?
One of the things I will add to this, if it's okay, is one of the things we noticed is customers, like I said, we're using multi-cloud, and we ask them, well, how do you determine what you're going to run on Azure versus what you're going to run on AWS? Oftentimes the answer is if it's a Microsoft-based technology, they'll put it in Azure, right? If it's SQL Server, if it uses SharePoint or whatever the solution. But there are many customers that have part of a solution, maybe they're doing something for a customer, they have part of it in Azure and part of it in AWS. And then it gets infinitely more complex trying to monitor and make sure you don't overspend. Here, you're able, just like you just showed us, with across those multi-cloud environments to aggregate it all together, set a budget, and as you approach, warn, flag, and then ultimately shut it down so we don't go over if that's indeed what we need to do. But that happens
Yes.
a lot with our customers.
See, if you're on cloud long enough, you are surely going to be using more than one cloud. Number one, right? Your use case might be better suited for a particular cloud's resources. Number two. So, I mean, you are on cloud long enough, you'll absolutely be having more than one cloud, right? That is one. Second, you're now having to manage to learn two different consoles. Your teams have to, work through two different consoles. You don't really want to do that for every single function, right? While for some functions you're still okay probably to do that, but from a FinOps perspective, that just becomes very cumbersome, right? So that's where a platform like this makes it very simple for you. This collates everything that is required from FinOps perspective into one simple, easy place for you to navigate through, right? I mean, I've talked to partners who said some things take them, 4 hours to generate a report that takes them 4 hours to generate, and 24 hours before they can actually finalize that because everybody's asking questions, everybody's pushing back, all of that. So they said, if you could have a tool like this, probably 8 hours for us, that's done automatically. Things get done automatically, right? So that's that. And anomaly dashboard is something where you can do fantastic FinOps, save a lot of money throughout the year. If you just let this one thing go, that will cover for, that will just take down everything, all the cost savings that you're done. So anomalies are very critical for you to be alerted as quickly as they happen, as soon as they happen, and for you to act as quickly as possible, right? So this is something that we do also, where based on your past month, past quarters data and applying sensitivity metrics on top of that, we are able to catch any abnormal spend, right? Spikes in spend, and we alert you for that, and you can come and check what is actually causing the spike, and you can make a decision. Okay, if it's a valid spike, a new program is kicking off, or if somebody has made a mistake, instead of putting 1 as the minimum number of VMs, they put 10 as the number of minimum number of VMs to have in a scale set, right? So that has spiked the cost. So those type of things you can address quickly one day, right? You cannot address the same day, but if today you're not catching it in less than one day, CoreStack is something, a platform that can absolutely help you catch that within a day, right, and save on costs. Okay, so that's what we have as part of a FinOps, right? Inform, optimize, operate, ability to have control, visibility, recommendations, also control and govern on a continuous basis, right? All you have to do is log in. 20 minutes you spend on this, where, what you need to do to save money or save drifts and costs. Yeah. So
We've got about 15 minutes more for a demo, and I see Joel has joined us. I want to, after that 15 minutes, I want to introduce Joel and let him kind of wrap it up too as well. So about 15 minutes more to go.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. So I'll quickly switch on to SecOps, right? SecOps is something, again, right? CoreStack. So you can have, there might be point tools that do some things great, and do do nothing for the other areas. As I mentioned in the beginning, this can be your one single comprehensive tool for all your cloud governance activities. So SecOps, this is what we do, cloud security posture management. So what we do is we bring again, right, across, and if you do have multiple entities, all you have to do is click all, right, across multiple entities, you will be able to see everything in a single pane, right? So threats and vulnerabilities, we depend on some of the hyperscalers. Whatever is there on the hyperscaler, we pull that and show it for you. Guardrails, right? This is something that Mike mentioned. Guardrails are our own set of policies that we write to catch any drifts or misconfigurations or best practice violations, right? This keeps happening a lot, right? And can you do a SCP for everything? You probably can. But what you get here is you get the security fence on day one, right? It comes with a built-in security fence. The moment you onboard your accounts, we have all these things running for you and catching any misconfigurations or non-compliances. So these guardrails, so you can see across what accounts, how well you're doing, how not well you're doing, right? You click that and go down into this and see, okay, what are the resources, right? So this is what is the recommendation, what is the resource, right? In some cases, you actually can tag remediations also. The way you define a policy, you can also tag a remediation if you do want to. So that remediation can be executed from core stack, or you can also trigger an auto remediation, if you will, right? Anytime a non-compliance, say for example, I have a firewall open to the internet or an IP open to the internet. You want to shut it down. So those can be auto remediated also if you do want to do that. We are not, by default provided that, but that's something that we can work with you to configure.
This is a huge issue too. If you are in a highly regulated industry, if you have compliancy issues, you're in legal, financial, healthcare, there are rules, Azure, AWS, et cetera. They have policies set up for example, US healthcare that'll put some of these guardrails automatically in place, but you still need to monitor them and make sure your compliancy is in check. And that's what this is doing.
Yeah. So yeah, you see here, this is no encryption, right? If there's an S3 bucket without an encryption, we have a remediation tag with this. So you click this, that will be executed and it will be encrypted, right? So right now this is a click, but if you did want to have it automatically done, auto triggered, that's also something that could be configured, right? Again, it's a choice that you'll have to make. If you do make the choice, we can help you do that. So in that sense, you get to see everything in a single simple pane. You have a NOC, and if you have an L1 team that spans across multiple entities, right? All you have to do is click all. You'll be able to see everything here. With a couple of clicks, you can get to specific customers. Let's say customer A has GCP, or an entity has GCP, entity B has AWS. From there to coming to this second one is just a couple of clicks away. Right? If you had to do the exact same thing on a console, just imagine, you're probably looking at 8 to 10 clicks before you can get there. Right? So that's something, that is one cloud security posture management for you. Again, guardrails, a whole set of guardrails. We have our own set of guardrails. You can also create your own, right? And bring it on. In case you already have something as your own standard, you can create that here. So my policies is where you can actually put your own specific policies. The second one is the compliance assessment, right? Everybody, as Mike was just mentioning, depending on the industry or the geography you're in, you have to adhere to some standards, right? And on cloud, right, CAS standard you want to adhere to. These are all different standards that we help continuously audit your workloads for and catch any non-compliances to best practices, right? All you have to do is just click apply and run. A couple of hours, you'll be able to see a dashboard like this that tells you, okay, let me take the second one. So PCI DSS, so these are the control families, or if you do want to categorize by resources. So this will also give you an idea of, okay, where you're typically having your non-compliances. Is there an SOP that needs to get updated? So those are types of things that you can identify from here. And you can configure for these to run daily, weekly, and that will tell you, okay, where you started and where you are today, what the actions that you've taken, how you have actually improved the trend on these things, right? These are things that you want to actually project out as you start doing them. And then you also get everything in one single place, right? So you click on this, you'll be able to see what is the specific resource that's in violation, what is the specific violation, and how to address. Okay, that's wrong. example I've taken. Let me see if I can pull one more.
While you're doing that, it's really surprising to see the number of organizations that didn't know these things even were already out there. They knew you could apply policies, but they didn't know they were already grouped for particular industries to be applied at a given time. That's one of the things that really came out in the CAF workshops, is we sat down and said, okay, you're a US healthcare, let's apply the HIPAA compliance right on top. And you get these puzzled expressions. They had no idea that they could even apply that, in group policy across the whole thing. So I thought that was always cool when we showed customers how to do that, and it just saved them tons of time.
Oh, absolutely. And you can combine a couple of these and create your own standard if you want, right? So those are things that you can do on the platform. You can take a few from one control, you can take a few from one control, and combine them, create your own standard. And then maybe weekly once you run the actual standard, but on a daily basis you run this, mix or hybrid of what you think is most critical.
Well, you even have, I'm noticing here you have regions, and I know one of the things that happens is people just start randomly picking regions, not realizing the farther away the region you are from your physical location adds latency and adds cost, right? If I suddenly spawn a resource in Japan because I think it's cool, I've just really slowed down my solution, but I've also doubled or tripled my costs because it costs more to do that. So I assume we can also monitor and control which regions assets get deployed in?
Yes. So here, as you can see again, so this is a non-compliance. There is a a remediation that is available for you just at a click of a button.
So Eric has asked a question, by the way. I just noticed. I apologize, I didn't see it. He's asking, are guardrails specific to cloud providers, or are there agnostic guardrails?
Guardrails are specific to cloud providers, but we do have the same version of the guardrail for each cloud provider. When we do create, we create it for all clouds, but each guardrail is specific to that.
It's a great question too. I want to add that the vocabulary is different. So we use CAF, for example. Microsoft CAF is not the same as Azure CAF. It's more equivalent to Azure well-architected framework. Well-architected framework on Azure is very different than well-architected framework. So the vocabulary is different. The concepts sometimes are similar, but you always don't get that perfect match back to back. So thank you for asking that, Eric. It's a really good point.
Absolutely. So that's what we have from. So here, when I mentioned that you can create your own standard, right? So you see these are our standards that come out of the box. You create my standard, so you can go ahead and create your own standard here. So some of these, some of our customers do use these as a combination of standards rather than having multiple standards being audited different times. So that's something you can do also. Right? Not a lot of this is not something that you easily get in a lot of places. Right? So that's from a SecOps perspective. From so I got, I think, another 3 to 7 minutes. Yeah. So here, one other thing here is, right, so you do have this posture again for CloudOps, right? Any activities that are happening, any thresholds that are being breached. How we do that is you create one template, or you create, like, say, a set of templates. Any new cloud accounts you onboard, any new customers you onboard, right? You don't really have to go setting up all these alerts in each of those accounts. The moment you have done this template once, all you have to do is go into CoreStack. With a couple of clicks of a button, you can apply the particular relevant template to that particular cloud account. And what it does, CoreStack does, is in the background sets up all those alerts for you, CloudWatch alerts for you, or Azure Monitor alerts for you, and start pulling in any threshold breaches or activities that are done. So, for example, here, so what I'm trying to say that here is, right, so between now and next year, right, today if you have 20 accounts, by next year, or subscriptions, next year you're probably going to have 27, 28, 30, right? You don't have to do this again, and you do this one time. In the next 3 years, suddenly you're looking at double the number of accounts or subscriptions probably, right? And that means every single account has to be set up. You don't have to do that. Once you have created the template, all you have to do is just one click of a button, those things get applied, right? Your let's say SLAs drive these templates. Your SLAs are changing, you just change the template, right? Suddenly you can have better threshold monitoring and all that. So instead of monitoring a threshold at 70%, you want to now monitor at 80%. Just one place you go change it, it will automatically change all the accounts that it's applied on, right? So something like this, and you can also configure, right, notification through an email or a webhook. Webhook integration is available for Teams and Slack's channel, so you can do that. Or you can, if you're integrated an ITSM tool with CoreStack, you can actually generate the ticket itself. Anytime that there is an alert, if you do want to generate a ticket, you can configure for it to generate a ticket. Yeah, so that is from a cloud infrastructure observability perspective, monitoring and observability. Templates, so infrastructure as code template support also is available. So if you do want to move your provisioning activities away from a console to something that is more restricted but more often used, you can use this, right? So we do support Terraform, ARM, CloudFormation, all those templates. Right, and again, you can have control over who can access this and who cannot. So you just go ahead and okay, let me see. Yeah, so we use templates for all sorts of things in the background for our own remediation actions and all that. So you can go ahead create this. So what happens is this sort of no code way of using your infrastructure as code template. So you go here, these are parameters that you can take in and load execute parameters, and according to these parameters, so what you've done is basically restricted your teams, constrain your teams to entering just 2 or 3 variables, and based on that a particular resource is created. On cloud you have a lot more abilities and options, but that's a powerful beast that can actually you could go terribly wrong also there. Whereas here, so what happens is your most provisioned resources you can actually move away from cloud consoles to just core stack consoles, where you constrain your resources from selecting just like say 5 or 6 types of machines, not the whole set of 200 types of machines that could range on cost from anything. Right? So those type of activities you can actually move away from your cloud consoles to core stack console and do your 70% of your provisioning. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I would love to add to that just because we see this all the time. What customers need is automation, right? And the days of development team says, hey, I need to set up a new database for an app I'm building. And the team says, okay, the cloud team says, fill out this form and figure out how you want to configure it. So they fill it out. And then they go back and say, no, you don't need this much. And there's this war that goes back and forth between dev and the cloud enablement government team about what they do or do not need. They've looked into this. The average time that war lasts is 6 months. Needless to say, the devs are like, I need today. So what Uday just talked about, what I love about CoreStack, you can automate these processes, and we like to do it even when we do cloud or CAF events. We talk about make it good, better, best. I will let you at a minimal configuration build a VM that looks like this. I'll give you a medium choice, and then I'll give you a best choice. And all you have to do is just justify why you're doing good, better, or best, but they're already pre-approved, meaning I've already decided how much hard disk space and how much processor based on the corporate standards that we're going to support. And this is per group or per user, right? I can put it down on this particular project team and give them something different than I give another project team. The beauty, though, is once that's defined, what he's showing you here, these templates are set in place, they don't have to go through that 6-month process. It's already pre-approved. And when they say, I need a SQL server, it says, here's a good, a better, a best option. Which one do you want? They click the button, it's pre-approved, and 6 minutes, 10 minutes later, it's deployed and they're up and running. And they're now developing and doing what they're paid to do. I just love that. And customers, once they realize that, there's this lot of control feeling. They don't want to give up control. IT doesn't want to give up control. But if you can do it in a way that guarantees it won't violate security or finance or anything else, it's amazing how much it'll free your company to go do what your company does best, kind of thing.
Yes. See, today, if you're not going to go for automation, you have to look for those qualified resources that are not cheap, right? That can do this for you.
Yeah.
Right? So this is something that saves cost in multiple levels. It saves time, and it saves a lot of heartburn for the development teams, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned Terraform. A lot of customers using Terraform. I love the fact that it can apply in and work with Terraform as well. We saw Terraform probably about 20% of all the CAF events we did.
Oh, yeah. And Terraform, we also have this ability for you to run a basic DevSecOps scan. So you can work with us, any specific things you want to check before a template is executed, we can configure that for you. So it will run a basic scan and tell, okay, these scans, these particular ones have failed. So go ahead and fix it before you can run it. So that way you're stopping the misconfiguration from even happening in the first place. Yeah. So that's what we have. We do have also the WAF, but yeah, I'll hold on that. I think we are sort of there. Do we have time, Mike, under 5 minutes for me just to show WAF?
Yeah. Yep, okay. That's good.
So let me.
So WAF, well-architected framework.
Right. So well-architected framework, as Mike mentioned, right? So we work closely with AWS, Azure. In fact, AWS and Azure have referred us some of our customers when they have been approached for WAF and asked to check things out. So same set of things. You onboard your accounts. First thing, you create your workload, right? That's critical because today you probably can you can define your boundary of your workload as it pleases you, right? So you can okay, this is an assessment, sorry. So create your workload. So what here, okay, can you do this on AWS? You probably can do that also, but clear callouts of what we can do more here is there's no one person that is an expert on anything. So what it allows here is for you to enable multiple people to work on one assessment, right? You might have a FinOps expert, you might have a SecOps expert. So you can have multiple people work on one assessment here. So you can have your workload span across multiple cloud accounts, right? And once you can also say, okay, within this set of resources, I want this assessment to consider only compute and say database resources, right? So that's something. So you are able to define the boundary of your workload as it pleases you, right? You create a workload and then you go here, run an assessment. So as part of that workload, right, you can have multiple sets of criteria that you can go by tag, type of resources, multiple accounts, all sorts of things, right? So you select a workload that you have created. Okay, let me, and AWS will architect it, right? So you click save and run. So you get something like this, right? A scan runs. So here, what we have is we have automated some of the controls so that you remove the subjectivity out of it, right? It's automatically scanned based on policies. You get something like this, a score, and this is the assessment user interface that you have, right? 6 different pillars, each pillar decomposed into multiple questions, each question decomposed into multiple best practices. And against each best practice, your architect can put a comment or add a recommendation, right? So this is very useful because and actually mark it as either not applicable or verified. Second is, okay, this is not mine, so I'm not able to do that, but each of these pillar you can assign to a different person. That enables multiple architects or multiple SMEs to work on completing one framework assessment properly. And then you also have an approver workflow that allows you to submit it for approval, who can then review what has been found and approve that workflow. And as you can see here, manual and automated. So nature automated means this will have a policy running in the background and it will tell you any non-compliance that have been found for that particular best practice. So that way, the more automation that we bring in, the less time it's going to take for you. And it directly, you don't have to trawl through resources and say, okay, this is what is wrong, this is what is right. The system is going to do that for you. All you have to do is go fix that, rerun the scan, and if you get a success, that's it. Right? So this can be registered on, say, AWS also, if you do want to register this as a assessment. And lastly, you'll be able to see this report. So for example, I'm just exporting this report as a PDF. So what you'll be able to see is you can take this report, send it out to multiple people, have them take care of business, if you will. So this type of a report is there that tells summary, right? How many are not applicable, what's the total best practices, what is not applicable, and out of the ones that are applicable, which ones are verified and which ones have work to be done, right? So and as you flow through that, right, you'll be able to see all of this and all the way down, right? You'll start seeing the non-compliance related information also. Let me see if something is there. Yeah, probably this one doesn't have it. So each of those, what resources are in non-compliance and what is the fix that need to be put in place, right? So that type of a thing you can actually see in the report itself, and you can run this scan any number of times, right? So as Mike was saying, right, is let's say there is a big work program, you have a workload, somebody has run the assessment, they're not with the company anymore after 6 months. You don't want somebody to start from scratch, right? Without a tool like this, you are having to start from scratch. Whereas here, all you have to do is just run a rescan. You'll be able to check the old report, what's happening in the last scan, what was fixed, and any new things that are in non-compliance. You'll be able to see all that. Right? Makes it a lot more repeatable and easy for you over a long period of time. Saves a lot of time and effort for you. Okay, I'll stop here, Mike.
Yeah.
We'll give you some time.
I was hoping, I know Joel joined us. I don't know if he's even listening in right now or not. Joel, are you there?
I am here. How's it going?
I've been telling people none of this was scripted. I've been throwing things at Uday all day long, and he's been rolling with them. And you didn't know I was going to call on you. But I want to introduce Joel. Joel's our partner manager with CoreStack. He and I work together, as I said, with Azaleos. I told him that whole story. Want you to chime in real quick. Who is this product for? Is this for small business, medium business? Is this only for enterprise? Where would you classify this so our customers kind of understand where it fits?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say, it has use cases across all of those different customer types, right? Depending on what they're trying to do. I would say if you're looking at, the FinOps side of it more specifically, I think where we see the most value being delivered is kind of in that mid-market on up to enterprise kind of scale, just because there's going to be more cloud spend, there's going to be more chances and opportunities for optimizations and improvements in kind of their cost postures. So I would say FinOps plays more in mid-market and up, but the SecOps and CloudOps certainly can play across the board and deliver value for customers as well.
Yeah, and I think Uday did a great job of explaining that, I mentioned this, you can do this yourself if you want, but why would you, right? And oftentimes you have to go out and buy the third-party tool for this and the third-party tool for that, and it just gets really complex and really compounding. I know I'm sounding salesy, but believe me, this isn't meant to be salesy. It's just meant to be passionate to say it's just so much easier. What does ROI look like when you use something like CoreStack? Let's say I am an upper mid-market. I've got an extensive, I am using multi-cloud. I know there's no one answer, but how quickly can I get a return on investment when I use a tool like this? Is there any estimate or guidelines?
They're all over the board, right? So, there's a lot of factors that weigh into that. What I would say is that, most of our customers are able to unlock ROI pretty quickly, assuming they implement the tool fully and they start remediating on the actions and the different things that we identify, right? So, a customer that gets a whole list of remediations and they never actually click buttons or do the remediation, well, it's there, but they can't unlock the potential, right? So, I think most of our customers find a pretty quick ROI though if they're taking it serious and they're doing the implementation and remediation.
Yeah. Joel is working with Microsoft directly. They have been doing these CAF events. Like I said, a year ago, I was working with CoreStack and I was delivering them for them. I changed jobs, so I kind of didn't do that anymore, but that's continued on. I know Microsoft, of course, brand new fiscal year for Microsoft, who knows? But if you're a large enough organization, oftentimes Microsoft will come in and they'll actually pay you to go through this process. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. We just got to figure it out. If they don't, though, like I said, that's where Fuji comes in. We're doing these for customers now. And we've taken this concept, Joel and I have started to discuss this, where we're now building this out for AWS. We, 2 weeks ago, showed it to the AWS team and they flipped. They thought it was awesome. They're actually looking at investing and driving customers as well. So never say never. If you're interested in going through one of these CAF events, CAF and CoreStack work beautifully together. They're not a requirement. You don't have to go to a CAF workshop in order to get the benefit of what CoreStack's showing you. But they do work really, really well because the CAF will kind of say, let's restart. Let's think through what we're trying to accomplish. Let's make sure everyone's on the same page. Let's outline it and lay it all out in a nice document format. and then let's bring in an architect and let's build you one of these safe landing zones, whether it's in Azure or AWS or Google Cloud or whatever the case may be. Once all that's done, once you got that going, then CoreStack sits right on top of that and help do the deployments, help set up those guardrails, help do all the cool stuff you just saw applied to FinOps. And the idea here is if everything works the way it does and the way it should, you should be getting a return of investment back in under a year's time. You should easily pay for anything you put into it, and everything beyond that is just pure gravy. Now, I can't make that as a general statement. It depends on your usage and everything else. I can say of the 57 cloud events that I helped deliver, customers were skeptical at the beginning, and by the time we got done and we followed up with them afterwards, they were like, this is awesome. This is it opened up discussion. They started talking about things they had never addressed before. They found security holes that they didn't realize were there. They were able to find these, oversourced resources and orphaned resources that, again, they were absolutely sure weren't in there until we ran the report, came back and said, what about these? Like, whoops, let's go close all that down. So great tool. I want to thank you two in particular. They came in on short notice to help us out today.